Hey guys, how's it going? This is my book talk. This is Coffee and Books book talk. Oh yeah. No, just kidding. This is my book today, The First Global Village: How Portugal Changed the World. But first, real quick, I wanted to share with you guys what my wife did that is awesome. She bought this coffee warmer. So thank you to my wife for buying that. I really appreciate it. Just wanted to show you guys the awesome birthday gift, and that will definitely be a permanent fixture in the future for me drinking coffee and tea. All right, so what I got here is The First Global Village: How Portugal Changed the World. I actually bought this book in Portugal in a town called Évora. It is awesome. This book is reminding me of my trip to Portugal, which was not that long ago, but I wanted to read this book because of multiple reasons. One, this book gave me the inspiration to go there, but basically I was already interested in learning more about the country. When I went there, every single person who was Portuguese that I talked to said, "Hey, you want a book in English that's popular? Get this book." And that's exactly what I did. I went into a bookshop. I talked to somebody. I said, "Hey, I want to buy this book. Congratulations. This is available to you." I bought it, brought it back home. It was been on my bookshelf. I said, "I'm reading it." I even got the receipt where it says I spent like 20 euros on it. So it was moderately expensive, but I think it was well worth it. All right. So first off, this book is about 258 pages. It was published by Martin Page, who's like a very famous author. So I believe he was a travel writer before. I'm not 100% on that. But basically, this book covers the history of the Portugal, the country. But it covers it from the perspective of starting all the way in ancient times with the Romans, kind of fighting off our arch rival, the Carthaginians, all the way to kind of the present being the current, democracy that they have. But there's a very, very long history, so we got a lot to go into today. Okay, so first, long time ago, ancient Rome, being the Republic, basically fought their old arch rival, the Carthaginians, who were based in Carthage, which is in Africa. Basically, what is now Portugal and Spain, or the modern Iberian Peninsula, was conquered by the Romans. The Romans brought science and technology with them, such as the aqueducts. They also brought with them war, but it's a whole other story. But basically, the first sort of understanding of what we have, what is Portugal, came from the Romans. It was a country that was occupied by them. They had mines. They had a major fixture in the Mediterranean. It was a very good place, to trade with, of course, Rome itself. But eventually what kind of happened is that the Roman Empire collapsed, as we all know. The Roman Empire collapsed for a multitude of reasons, which this is not get into that one. This is not that episode. What this is about is basically Portugal kind of became independent. And it went through a period of dark times and positive times and dark times again. But basically what you need to know for all intents and purposes, I'm going to kind of skip over some history here, is that the Knights of Templar, a very famous religious and secretive order, kind of was the main reason how Portugal came into existence. It was a kingdom that was founded, sort of by the people, but, basically they had different forms of governments over the years, from monarchies to dictatorships to democracies. They've kind of seen and had it all. And this book, like I said, describes that very well. But basically, early on, during the Knights Templar history, they founded and were a monarchy. And so they formed one of the oldest alliances in the world, which is between England, or, basically modern-day UK and modern-day Portugal, that has gone back basically hundreds of years. So just think about that first. Oldest alliance in history. And so what Portugal is really famous for, besides the food, the music, and the people, and all that stuff, is Portugal is probably most famous for its colonial exploration and exploitation. It's most famous for basically bringing the slave trade to basically the rest of Europe. So they had parts in Africa, such as Angola, that belonged to the Portuguese Empire. They were famous for basically, occupying what is now modern-day Brazil and controlling that and the wealth that was derived from that. They were also all the way connected to places such as India and Japan. You might have heard about that, but that was basically the first contact that basically Asia really had with what is now the European colonies and empires. Like there was contact before, but this was basically the Portuguese were the first sort of Western empires to make it all the way across the world without having to go a long way. They went through boat and they managed to basically get into contact and bring the spices and trades back to Portugal, which was a huge deal at the time. They financed famous explorers, which you might have heard about. Like I said, they had religious orders, they had all kinds of things that were going on there. And so for many years, it was a very interesting place. But in medieval times, they're also known for having the Spanish Inquisition. So unfortunately, the Spanish Inquisition, which is a big part of Spain, was sort of married into the Portuguese Empire when their king basically arranged to marry a Spanish, princess, and that, in order to bring the countries closer together, it kind of unified Spain and Portugal for a few years. But basically, it was kind of not the best idea. The countries, even though they're kind of like brother and sister, they're right next to each other. They've sometimes been into arguments and squabbles with each other. But basically, Spain and Portugal have sort of a long, complicated history in itself. But what you need to know about this is that basically they had their shares of ups and downs. And like I said, Portugal is famous for, like I said, it being a place of science, and basically the Moors were there, the Muslims, Christians, Jews. It was a place of trade. It was a place of worship. Beautiful buildings were there, churches, all different kinds of things. Worship, was there, and that all kind of changed towards the more modern era. We get into the Industrial Revolution. We get into the wars that were fought, with Napoleon, which is something that was a huge deal. And you get to, how the English in World War I, kind of pressed the Portuguese to fight on their side, which led to their financial ruin and eventual creation of their dictatorship. But that's a very long story in itself. Anyway, I just wanted to tell you guys, basically, Portugal is a fascinating place. Their dictatorship went away peacefully, which I find very interesting. It lasted for about 50 years into the 70s, and now they have a democracy again. The royal family is still around, but they're not basically a part of their empire anymore, due to multiple assassination attempts on their life. They kind of, fled the country, which I don't blame them. And, that kind of covers up the long history of Portugal. It's a cool place with great food, great music, and most importantly, it covers a long period of history. And, this book is a great introduction if you're going to Portugal. I recommend getting it before you get there, like me. I didn't actually get it until I was there in person, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't worth it. And that's something I'm going to tell everyone about. If you got the chance and you need to looking for your next vacation, maybe Portugal is the place to go. Anyway, if you like this one, share this with your friends. Appreciate it. Don't forget to follow. Have a great rest of your night, guys.